Hi, I'm Gene Cornacchia. At St. Peter's University, we believe that all citizens need to understand the importance of higher education and how it affects our lives. That's why we're proud to support the important programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of CAUCUS New Jersey has been provided by the PNC Foundation, which supports early childhood education through Grow Up Great, a multi-year initiative to help prepare children from birth to age 5 for success in school and life. St. Peter's University, the Jesuit University of New Jersey, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, JAG Physical Therapy, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, and by the law firm of GIBBONS, P.C. Promotional support provided by New Jersey Family Magazine and NJFamily.com, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're talking early childhood education with people who know, and we are pleased to welcome Cindy Terebush, early childhood education expert, parenting consultant, author of Teach, the Whole Preschooler Strategies for Nurturing Developing Minds. Good to see you, Cindy.
Thank you.
You're part of a panel discussion we had on the word gap, right? Dealing with vocabulary issues, but we're having a larger discussion on early childhood. By the way, define early childhood.
Early childhood is defined as birth to age 8.
8?
8. Until about age 8 or 9, they take in information and learn the same way. That's why it's such a shame that children who are in kindergarten, first, second grade are sitting at desks as long as they are. It's not how they learn best.
Hold on, wait a minute. Sitting at that, like, what's the problem with sitting at a desk?
You know, they just don't learn best that way. I think it's true of all of us that we learn from being active in our experience, but especially for young children. They add to their knowledge naturally when they're active and they're explorers and they're discoverers, and it's how they develop critical thinking skills. And we need to let them do that. And when you sit them down in front of a piece of paper, you do not get the same depth of learning that you do when they're exploring and experimenting.
Let's play this out a little bit. The basics, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic. Has that changed at all?
The way we approach it, do you mean?
A, the way we approach it. B, are they not at the core of the foundation of learning for children?
Well, no, I think that there's been a lot of pressure placed on that, and especially in the early childhood, the early childhood years, there's a lot of pressure on those people who are teaching 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds to get these children reading sooner and doing math sooner. But so much of it is developmental. They can't do it until they can do it. And in order for them to be ready to do it, there are other skills that we need to strengthen.
Such as?
We need to strengthen the gross motor and fine motor skills. We need to...
you just jumped past that. That's jargony to me.
We need to strengthen the movement in their fingers, in their bodies. Their body movement helps brain development. We need to be teaching them about personal interaction like you and I are having, not so much in front of screens, so that they get nonverbal communication.
How do you teach that interpersonal skill set, the ability to be in a conversation, to talk, to listen, to take turns, to ask good questions, to be just someone who knows how to engage other people?
We have to be conversing with them all the time, at home and at their school. There needs to be back and forth conversation so that they learn that. And throughout the day. So, you know, when a child is playing, let's say a very young child is playing, and they're pretending, which is what they primarily do in the early childhood years. It's how most language is developed, through their pretend play. If you watch a young child pretend, even when they're alone, they're speaking and they're communicating. They'll be sitting there kind of whispering, even if we don't understand it. So they're developing a lot of language at that stage, and we should go over and ask them questions. We need to ask more than we state. There was a study done about questioning and how children ask the most questions. You know, the questions for adults, they tend to drive us a little crazy. Right. But we also don't ask enough questions of them to help them to think critically.
What do you mean?
When young children, they come to us all the time and they say why, and adults get a little crazy. And really we should be asking them why as much as they ask us why, and to help them to build their thinking.
It's so interesting when I think about this. I said this in a roundtable discussion. I'm fascinated by our daughter Olivia, who's in that age range you talked about. And so, you know, I've always noticed and it's actually one of the professors at Rutgers, Dr. Maurice Elias, who's the head of the Department of Psychology, Child Psychology, told me this. He said, we often ask our kids, how was school? Fine. Everything okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, instead, ask your kid, and I often ask Olivia this question and our other children, but Olivia is the one who answers it in a way that really engages me the most. What was the most interesting thing that happened at school today? And there's the conversation that kicks off. Just that little one thing.
Yes.
Why is that question, as an example, so powerful to teaching engagement?
One reason is because the children at that age are so egocentric, and now you're asking them about them.
I'm sorry, just children?
No, we never lose it.
No kidding.
But we're asking them about them. You know, when a child draws something, not a good question is, what is that? You get a one-word answer. When you say to young children, tell me about that, or you say to young children, what is your favorite part of that? You get a whole story. And then you can engage in a conversation. We need to be asking them open-ended questions from the time they're very young, and just let them talk.
The Power of Questions. By the way, I don't often plug books, but there's a wonderful book. Oh, by the way, what's your book again?
My book, Teach the Whole Preschooler, Strategies for Nurturing Developing Minds.
Yeah, by the way, go out and check that book out. But another book is written by Dr. Mary Lee Adams in Philadelphia. She's a psychologist, wrote a wonderful book, had great influence on my work, my research, and the teaching I do. It's called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, Dr. Mary Lee Adams. Check it out. It's all about the power of questions. How about this one? Testing, standardized testing, and preschool children. Your thoughts?
We should be throwing out the standardized testing through our elementary school. You know, there's so much focus now on the standardized testing. And when I work with parents, I find that they're mostly afraid. And most parents are. You know, we want our children to be successful, and we fear that they won't. And then these tests loom overhead. All of these tests from a very young age. But don't they tell us where
children are at that point and whether they are on level and what we can do about it? Early warning signs?
The best way to see where children are is to observe them. Watch them, talk to them, interact with them. It should be intrinsic. Our observations of young children should be from our everyday interactions with them. You know, what children need to learn today is very different than what we needed to learn maybe when we were younger. When I was younger and I wanted to know a fact, do you know what I had to do to get that fact?
That's right.
First, I had to wait. Then I had to go somewhere. I had to go maybe to a library, had to figure out where to look this up. I have 2-year-old children now telling me if they ask me a question and I say, I don't know, they tell me to Google it. They know that facts are in their pocket. They don't need that as much. What they need are the critical thinking skills, the decision-making, confidence in themselves and their ability to do that, the knowledge that we're all human, we all make mistakes.
And we can teach this?
We can by modeling it.
How do you teach a kid critical thinking skills, much less confidence?
We teach them critical thinking skills by asking questions that will build on their own curiosity.
Like, tell me why you did that. Tell me why you see it that way.
Yes. What else can we do? So
that's critical thinking.
Yes. What else can we do? How else can we do that? Where do you think that will go? I was on the playground recently with a bunch of early childhood learners, and they saw an ant. You know, and they saw an ant. And of course, they just screamed and ran. And then we started to talk about how we are in the ant's home. This is where the ants live. And where do you think they find their food? And where do you think the ant is going? And it promoted a whole conversation, and they started following the ants around. We found tree roots. We talked about how the roots bring the water into the tree. You know, but we have to be careful. We have to be intentional in our conversations with children. And that's how you build critical thinking.
Finally, why do you love what you do so much when it comes to children?
I love what I do so much. I think because it matters and you can see it, and you can see it every day. If I sit and I work with, a lot of what I do has to do with training teachers. And when I work with teachers and I tell them, you know, here's an approach, or here's a way to talk to the children, and they come back and they say, I tried that and it worked, and the children were so much more engaged, you can see the difference that it makes.
I want to thank you for what you do every day.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it. By the way, real quick question. One more, as a student of leadership myself, what's the greatest leadership lesson you've learned in your life?
Oh, the greatest leadership lesson I've learned in my life is to listen.
Neither one of us are going to talk right now. I'm not going to be the one interrupting. Hey, listen, Cindy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do, particularly for our children.
Thank you for
having me. And those who teach our children.
Thanks.
Well done. Stay with us. We'll be right back. That was great.
Thank you.
To watch more CAUCUS New Jersey, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to be joined by Beth Cooper, Curator of Education at the New Jersey State Museum. How you doing, Beth?
Great.
We had a conversation with some of your colleagues about early childhood and this. We talked about the word gap, vocabulary challenges that children have, particularly from economically disadvantaged homes in the state of New Jersey. There's an initiative in Trenton that you're connected with called Trenton Makes-Words. What is it?
It is a partnership to build vocabulary funded by PNC Grow Up Great, and we work with the Trenton Community Music School, which has been active in the community for many, many years, and we work with Children's Home Society, which has been around much, much longer, Children's Home Society of New Jersey. And so the three of us have worked on programming for caregivers and children, most often parents, sometimes other caregivers in their lives, to build vocabulary every day. Because of the word gap and the fact that parents are their child's first teachers. So having them really understand that and the power they have in influencing their child's education and making them school ready. So we kind of collaborate with the families and do a 90-minute session of music and storytelling and games and just have fun. And then we do parent tips every week.
Parent tips?
We give them tips on how to talk to their child. So a big thing that we stress is reading, talking, playing, and singing. So as you go through your day, narrating what you're doing.
Narrating what you're doing?
You know, so today, this is what we're going to do today. We're getting into the car to go to the grocery store, or at the grocery store, look at these apples. What color are they? These look like apples, but they're a different kind of fruit. So kind of just always talking as you're going through, and then making up silly songs and building vocabulary by singing either to the radio or songs or making up your own songs.
How does that help the child with his or her vocabulary?
The more words a child hears, the more they understand and can learn. Repetition helps, so that's why music is great, but also reading. And then words that parents know, and then some words that maybe are new to everyone. And so that's why reading is so important. So you have everyday words that you use, but then you also every night read a book before bed so that you are reading stories that contain words that are different or not things you hear every day. And so that all adds up in a child's daily life.
Well, I'm going to do this. You brought in some books, not by accident. You picked some books here. Can we talk about some of those books and why they're so valuable? I see The Sounds Around Town. I know that book well. It's a great one. Let me just hold it up and you can talk about it.
So what we do with Trenton Makes-Words, we have monthly themes, and that's a way that we can kind of package the words. So the words of the week relate to the theme, and they relate to each other. So that also helps making those connections. And so that is from a Music and Motion Month. So we did a lot of rhyming. That book rhymes really well, and talks about going through your town.
So what's so great about this book, it's got a picture of a bird, and it says tweet, tweet, which is obviously the sound the bird makes. The clock, tick tock, the sound the kitty cat makes.
And
It's
making sounds with your child just kind of adds that fun element. So we always try to pick books that are really great for reading aloud. So things that add, let's make the sound of the cat together. Let's make the sound of the bird together. Those are ways to interact with your child while you're reading.
See, it's so interesting. If you take a look at this, let me open this up. Steve, take a look at here. I'm pointing over here to this kettle. In our house, you often hear the tea kettle going off. It has S's there, but actually making the sound, why is that vocabulary?
Well, it helps to connect that's what that is. And also you build vocabulary by saying, we have a teapot. What color is our teapot? This one is red, but what color is ours? What do we use our teapot for? So every page has a reason to talk to your child.
That's great. Can I see that one real quick?
Who's in the forest? So this is our Green and Growing Month. That's the month we're in right now. So
Green and Growing Month, love it.
Talking about trees and flowers and taking walks in nature with your child and how you can talk about what you see around town or around the green spaces in your city.
Vicky, you know what I love about this? There are sounds that have to be made. It creates a level of interactivity, does it not? And it's fun. But the other thing is, there's bears. Bears say Thanks, says thanks?
Yeah, and this is a picture book. So we try to vary between board books and picture books because the board books are better for the very young, 0 to 3, and then the picture books are good for a little bit older child. And so it kind of gives them a library to grow on at home. So they do get the book that we read in the session every week. They take that home.
So how does it work? They get the books?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get these books?
So what we do as part of the program is teach them how to use the kit in the session, and then they actually take it home. And so they're building a library in their house so they can read to their child every night. And they're also building a selection of toys that foster that interactivity and communication.
Is that one of those toys? Is that a tea set?
Mm-hmm. The tea set came with the Bear Says Thanks.
Okay, explain that to the tea set.
And this was part of our Culture and Traditions Month. So we talked about how you have culture and traditions in your family. It was the month of November, so we also brought in Thanksgiving, and the Bear Says Thanks about creating a meal with your friends. So the tea set was included to encourage families to have a tea party at home like they do in the book and talk about, pretend play is how children learn. And so interacting in that pretend play and actually participating, not just watching your child do it, but asking them questions about what they're doing and playing with them.
Question about technology.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are engaged, many kids are engaged in technology. The kid plops in front of television or an iPad or whatever it is, and you're like, well, the kid's listening to something. He or she is watching something. I'm good. Somebody's talking to him or her. Not good enough.
Right. It's not good enough. That interaction, that back and forth is so important. There are studies that show that they don't learn as much vocabulary from screen time as they do from the back and forth.
Sorry for interrupting, except if you were talking about Sesame Street.
Right, well,
I just have to do that for our own reasons, because it's true. Yeah. Most programs are not sitting there trying to educate children.
Right. Right. There's definitely a difference in quality for screen time for kids. They also say that if a parent is interacting with their child during screen time, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can also increase vocabulary because the parent is there and engaged with the child. So it's not necessarily that screen time is all the time bad. It is that, putting your child in front of a screen and leaving them alone is maybe not as
That's what
optimal.
you do with it. Plopping them versus engaging them. Listen, you could be a pain in the neck while your kid's watching to the point where you don't even allow the kid to watch, but pausing and talking and asking is helping, and there's learning going on if you do it. Yeah.
Sure.
By the way, how'd you get into this whole thing?
Well, the New Jersey State Museum has been doing early learning programming for probably the past 5 years or so. We started out with preschool field trips, so we created programs for preschool classrooms to come and participate in. And so then this opportunity was a way to connect with families. And after doing 5 years of these programs and reading all the research, I understood the importance of that family-child connection, so I was really excited to try to create a program that would affect that.
George, real quick, before we let Beth go, what's it called? Paint Me a Story? Tell me about it real quick. We got some pictures of it. Go ahead.
That is one of our preschool field trip programs, and it's wonderful because we have a wonderful fine art collection, and we actually go into the galleries with kids. And I know a lot of families are afraid to bring young children into a museum because you can't touch anything and you have to be quiet, And so we try to find ways to do programming for families with young children. And so we dance in the gallery. We have a Jacob Lawrence called the Piano Player. It's two people at a piano, and so we play some music and we dance and we ask about what kind of music are they playing. We have one with birds flying, and so we'll ask them to fly like a bird. And so it's a way to engage the children with art appreciation. And then we take them down to our studio and they actually do art. They get a smock and they have an easel and they get to paint me a story. Well
done. Beth Cooper, we appreciate it, from the New Jersey State Museum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you, Beth.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are pleased to be joined by Ora Welch, President and CEO of HOPES. What is HOPES?
HOPES is a community program, and it's a program located in the community to serve people who are...
Hoboken?
Our headquarters is in Hoboken, and HOPE started in Hoboken. It started as a result of the economic opportunity programs that began back in 1964-65, Economic Opportunity Act.
So let's get this straight. Lyndon Johnson's president in 1964 after the assassination of President Kennedy.
Yes.
Head Start is created as part of this initiative, part of the Great Society program.
And his initial war on poverty.
Yeah, we're trying to, and the intention was to help assist children who really were getting the short end of the stick, disadvantaged children, right?
Yes.
Right? And so this program, HOPES, part of that initiative, right?
Yes.
Describe some of these children. What are they facing?
Oh, they are facing, they're facing all kinds of obstacles in their lives as they start to grow up. They start the school behind more children who have more advantaged situations. They need to get an opportunity to experience learning language, learning words, socializing, learning to get along with other children and other people, getting their health together, their dental health and physical health.
How about just being able to get a meal in the
mental
morning?
and emotional health.
Sorry for interrupting.
Getting a meal in the morning, a meal at noon, and a snack before they go home in the day, so that most of their nutritional needs are met.
So go back, it's interesting. We had a whole panel discussion talking about the word gap, right?
Yes.
You see it every day, don't you?
Yes.
What does it look like?
Well, it looks like what happens is that the children don't have as many words to express themselves, but that's what we're working on. We're working on giving them that avenue of words of expression.
How?
Reading to them, talking with them, having them talk to each other, having them talk to their teachers, the adults, having them talk to people in their families, and having them learn that problems can be resolved through words, and it doesn't have to always be physical. That's one of the things that happens, I think, with children. They get frustrated, and they get into a lot of fights.
Especially when they don't have the words.
Especially when they don't have the words. This goes over into the school, and then they get put into special education, and then they never catch up.
How did you get into this, or to the point where your passion and enthusiasm and commitment is dedicated to these children?
You know, when I was growing up, I grew up in the segregated South, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And after I had my family, I started doing volunteer work at the local community center. This was before community action. I lived in a community that had a settlement house. You know, settlement houses came as a result of the programs that were put together for immigrants coming across.
That's right.
In the early years. So they had a center, a house in the middle of the community.
Where just folks who are immigrants from that part of the world settled, and that's where they were.
Right.
You were in the Lower East Side of New York City.
They started out in places that were near the water.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then in 64, 65, when questions started coming up about how we were going to serve communities, I think a lot was taken from that pattern and then the name, instead of settlement houses, because we were more broadly based, more in the inner cities and
How did it then get into kids?
How did it get into kids?
Your passion.
My passion for kids. I love working with people. And I've always loved, even as a girl growing up, one of the things that was necessary for us in our family was to serve people. You go to church on Sunday, then on Sunday afternoon you went and did some community service. This had nothing to do with President Johnson. This was just what family required.
Yeah.
You go do community service.
And what's the greatest satisfaction you get out of it?
Seeing people, when people come back to me and tell me how much their lives, how much it meant to them, something that I've done to help them change their lives.
These kids, their parents, you hear it all the time.
Yes, yes. I get kids coming back to me and telling me, I'm in college now, Miss Welch. And, you know, and I got my own family, and my child is in a special program, and, you know, all kinds of things. And we've had all kinds of people who have gone through the Head Start program.
Well, we'll keep talking off the air, but you keep doing great things. You're making a difference every day. You're helping them grow up great. Well, I don't only hope so.
The preceding program has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of CAUCUS New Jersey has been provided by the PNC Foundation, St. Peter's University, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, JAG Physical Therapy, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by the law firm of GIBBONS, PC. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. CAUCUS New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Hi, I'm Peter Rooney. In 2006, I lost my father to renal disease. He was on the waiting list for a new kidney, but did not receive one in time. Unfortunately, so many like my father have lost their lives while waiting for a life-saving organ. At New Jersey Sharing Network, we're committed to saving and enhancing people's lives through organ and tissue donation and by informing people about this important decision, because you can make a difference and save a life.